Just had to straighten a couple things out. Don't worry about that. Let me just. Should probably turn on the light here. Want to have some visibility. Anyway, so let me just get this over here. And done. Let's see. Just want to straighten some things out so I'm not feeling awkward in this seat. Anyway. Whatever. Let us see. What do we have in here? We could do. Let's see. I just want to make sure I got all this right. I think this will go nicely. Very nicely. Let's see. Oh, come on. Get off of there. Gotta look pretty, I guess, for all this. Don't know who's joining along, though. Just had to sneeze, nothing big. Yeah, so probably just be working on a drawing that I've been cooking up for the last couple of weeks, I want to say. I mean, it's more like 2 months that I've been working on it, but I don't know. It's just like that, sometimes. Nose just felt a little itchy right there. Nothing big. Uh, just, uh, just waiting to see if anything will happen. Something probably will happen, so just holding out for that. There's nothing really new that's happened. I mean, it's just a Monday morning, just pretty average for me. Um, and just taking it easy and enjoying it. I was listening to what is it called again? I was listening to "This Nation Saving Grace" by The Fall for the second time, and I think it's a pretty great album. Uh, yeah, I'm just having a little fun with this. Yeah, I should probably bring over my phone. 1 second. Just want to make sure that I get it elsewhere. What's this now? Yeah, it's just sirens outside, nothing big. You know how it is. Hmm. Goofballs. Just something I saw in Discord, nothing more. Yes, indeed, Primordial Pros. Hello, you are watching my descent into madness. I'm kidding. I'll keep my sanity intact for rest of scheduled programming, of course. Yeah, just adjusting a couple of things in this drawing I have produced over the last month or so. I want to say like ever since early January. Here's what it is. Just want to, yeah, here's the mostly dinosaur specimens from the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. Some of these I drew with some guidance from the displays there, so that helped. Other than that, I'm just still trying to figure out. Let's see. I'm just still trying to figure out like how I should draw Edmontosaurus and Necnans that we have over there. The specimen of the Tyrannosaurus that I showed on top is LACM 23844, which is colloquially known as Harley Rex, which was discovered in, I think, 1967 by Harley Garbunny during an expedition over to Montana from the Los Angeles County Museum of Natural History. And it was in an effort to find a Tyrannosaurus specimen for the Natural History Museum, because for the longest time, all they had for like dinosaur specimens was uh, an Allosaurus, a Camptosaurus, and a Corythosaurus. The latter was one of the first dinosaur specimens they had on display, and they were just in need of a Tyrannosaurus, because every other American museum has one of those. Well, I mean, every American museum had like a cast of AMNH 5027, but you know that was it. That was pretty much one of the only other Tyrannosaurus specimens on display, aside from over in London, where you have the holotype of Dynamisaurus imperiosus, which I think is pretty neat. Sometimes we're all in need of a timer. Yeah, and there's like what 50 skeletons of Tyrannosaurus, or over 50 skeletons by this point. Well, skeletons and skulls, because there's like all these specimens that like every museum has to have their own Tyrannosaurus specimen, or more than one, because sometimes one isn't enough. So there's that. I think either the Museum of the Rockies or the Black Hills Institute um, of Geological Research, either one of those has like the most amount of Tyrannosaurus specimens in their collections, I think. And I don't mean just like isolated specimens. Like, I mean, sure, any museum can have like, fragmentary remains of Tyrannosaurus. Like, you could have like a couple of teeth and like isolated bones, but this is like, actual like whole specimens where it's like more than one bone, which I think is kind of neat. Um, so I find that kind of humorous that, you can actually do that. There's some places which kind of astonish me with like the fact that they even own a Tyrannosaurus in their collections. Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple of specimens over at the Museum of the Rockies that I adore of Tyrannosaurus. While not currently there because it's on loan to the Smithsonian, the Nation's Rex is pretty neat. Wankel Rex, or yeah, pretty much that's the other name for it, Wankel's Rex, which I think is a pretty neat specimen. It's like one of the first with like fully preserved forelimbs, which was pretty novel back in like what 1988, 1989, and I don't know, the preservation's just not that bad on it. Um, and then of course there's Pex Rex, and what else is there? There's that one skull that was discovered in the 1960s where it's like it was for a while like thought maybe this could be a larger Tyrannosaurus in Sioux, and it's never really been described. I mean, it's been mentioned in like a paper by Ralph Molnar on a Tyrannosaurus cranial anatomy, but aside from that, not too much. There's like the thing is with Tyrannosaurus, there's some specimens that are pretty interesting, but they haven't really gotten much in the way of like actually, being figured in papers or even like given a description. Like maybe you'll hear about it in like maybe casually mentioned in a couple papers, like, oh, here's a specimen of a Tyrannosaurus listed in here. Like, there's like only one publication that I know of that has like almost all these Tyrannosaurus specimens, at least in 2008, listed down and like with the material like listed and like where it was, how it was collected and any important information. And that would be it was I think it was by Larson 2008. It was in the book Tyrannosaurus the Tyrant Lizard, which um basically it's a one of those like Indianapolis University Press type books where it's um a bunch of, academic a very, very, technical sort of, book for those concerned. So, don't go in expecting, like, it to be, like, easy reading. If you want, like, anything on that for, like, Tyrannosaurus or related texts, I would say go for the Tyrannosaur Chronicles by David Hone. That's a little more of a less technical thing if you're wanting to get into Tyrannosaurus. But if you want to see like more stuff like the description of the taphonomy of Pex Rex or Jane or the description of that one Triceratops specimen with a chewed on horn, there you go, Or if you want a listing of like all the Tyrannosaurus specimens known in like 2008, there you go. I mean, of course, now we have a lot more Tyrannosaurus specimens that have been discovered. Like, I don't know, like, there's probably, like, some Tyrannosaurus specimens discovered in, like, 2008 or something like that, like, just as that book was being published. Like, one of the more recent specimens that's mentioned in that book is Thomas, which I remember, seeing being prepared when I was a small kid over at the Natural History Museum over here, and it's just really surreal because it's like, "Oh, wow, it's actually not that old in terms of, like, when it was discovered and all that." I know in terms of Tyrannosaurus specimens that are I guess sort of recent in discovery, I would say, well, for one, some really good examples would be Trix and Tufts Love Rex. I think Trix was discovered in 2012, and same with Tufts Love, but I could be wrong. I know these were like early 2010s discoveries, um, and then of course I think also in 2005 there was a discovery of the another Tyrannosaurus specimen in Wyoming. There's like only a handful of Tyrannosaurus skeletons in Wyoming. Last I remember, there was like only 3 that have ever been discovered. Um, but the one that I'm thinking of is one over at the Tate Geological Museum, called I think it's called Lee Rex. Yeah, which was discovered by folks over at the Tate Geological Museum, and is a pretty decently preserved skeleton. Yeah. Well, I mean, there are like, you can find like Tyrannosaurus remains like in Wyoming, like okay, like I mean, it's like stuff like teeth and like isolated remains. Like, if you look at like the Smithsonian's collection of Tyrannosaurus specimens mentioned in Gilmore 1920, it's not really. It's stuff like fragmentary postcrania. That was like the most that was discovered then in like the 1880s, whatever. And then, of course, in 1900, you got the discovery of Dynamisaurus imperiosus, which is like a much more complete specimen, but not like a really splendid specimen. I think Wyoming has yet to get that. Same with Colorado or Utah or New Mexico or Texas. Like almost all the good Tyrannosaurus specimens you have are like from Montana, North. I don't. What did I say? North Dakota. I gotta remember what's over in North Dakota in terms of Tyrannosaurus fossils. I kind of forget. Um, I know South Dakota has some pretty interesting specimens, of course. I mean, Sioux, the Mud Butte Rex, Stan. Um, yeah. Oh, and also in Alberta and Saskatchewan, there's like some decent Tyrannosaurus fossils. Of course, you got Black Beauty and Huxley Rex over in Alberta, and then in Saskatchewan, of course, you have Scotty. But, like, well, I mean, Huxley Rocks isn't as complete as, Black Beauty or, like, as pristinely preserved because uh, it's pretty much just a postcranial skeleton. In fact, it was just, like, originally just I think it was, like, one of the toe bones was, like, all that was collected, um, when it was revisited or something like that. And then it wasn't until like, this was discovered in the '40s, and then the quarry was revisited in 1981, and then the whole skeleton was actually dug up and taken over to the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. Yeah, I don't know, I love how, almost all Tyrannosaurus almost all Tyrannosaurus specimens that have ever been discovered have names associated with them so that, for ease of like, talking with them to other folks, they can be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen, Wankel's Rex or I've seen Y Rex or Pex Rex or Harley's Rex." You know, all that sort of stuff. There's like though I do find it kind of irritating how there's a deficit for like nicknames for the earlier specimens. Like, what about AMNH5027? What about the holotype of Tyrannosaurus Rex over at the Carnegie Museum? Or Dinosaurus imperiosus? It's I don't know. Hopefully sometime someone will, like, petition a name for some of these guys because it would be pretty fun to have something associated with them in that way. But yeah, I don't know, I just Tyrannosaurus is a fun dinosaur, and honestly, I don't think it's overrated. I just think, it's a dinosaur that just, it deserves all the appreciation it gets. Sure, I mean, there's problems with, like, comparing every single other theropod to it because it's like, it's I mean, this is just like its own thing. There's like a whole bunch of like there's a whole spectrum of theropods you can pick through where it's like, I don't know, weird stuff like Dinocyrus and uh E and like I don't know, just like you have so many theropods to pick from. And to always go to Tyrannosaurus is just kind of kind of just tasteless in my opinion because it's like Tyrannosaurus is a weird theropod when you think about it. It's like a pretty bulky and um, just really just insanely just powerful juggernaut of a predaceous dinosaur. When you compare it to like something like Gorgosaurus or Daspletosaurus, like I don't know, it's just it just it's a cool animal, honestly. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, it's just like and also I just wish that there would be, like, a little less of a like, I don't think it's a cool thing to just, like, put it down in online spaces as, like, overrated or whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, sure, there's other tyrannosauroids that I would want people to know about, Teratophonius or, Lithrinax and, Dynamaterror or, Bistachia versor, all those wonderful creatures, but maybe teach them a new thing about Tyrannosaurus, like, like that, what, 16-inch coprolite found in Saskatchewan full of, like, crunched up dinosaur bone, which I think that's a pretty, interesting little factoid. And also, I don't know, just how we have evidence of possible cannibalism by these guys, and, um, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, just all the weird little behavioral quirks and whatever. And yeah, just or I don't know, there's a lot of things that you could talk about. I just I'm trying to widen my scope with like how much I could like learn about certain prehistoric animals. Of course, it's easier to learn about some things than others. Like, you know, it's good to get like information on like ontogeny and like, physiology, whatever. Like, I don't know, just anything like that is just fun to pick through and just be like, "Okay, I can say something about this." I like this, like, sometimes, I kind of fixated on, like, anatomical papers back then, like, maybe about a year ago, I was, like, so fixated on trying to get all these anatomical papers, and then I just found out it was also fun gathering up those papers which showed, like, behavioral stuff, like, these short communications where it's like, um, I don't know, like, there's that one paper which talked about, like, for Triceratops, um, what is it, agonistic behavior. It's a short publication, like only a couple of paragraphs long with like maybe 2 or 3 figures, from like the early 2010s on like, yeah, we have evidence for Triceratops agonistic behavior. And it's like these like scarring marks left on the facial region of Triceratops. and and also the same for Centrosaurus, because for comparison. Um, and I don't know, I just found that really interesting. It's sometimes fun seeing that kind of stuff, and then it's disappointing when some of that stuff is only relegated to abstracts. When it's like I feel like it's something that you wish that you could get more of, but like sadly it's only like a couple paragraphs long as an abstract in SVP. Yeah, yeah, Tyrannosaur, like I don't know, mating behavior would be fun to see more information about. I see we have 2 viewers as well. I wonder who else is in around here. If you're able to type or whatever, do say hello. I should probably continue on our dear friend Triceratops. I feel tempted to give it like ribbing on the horns, like uh, what is it? Who did that? I know in the manga Dino Sanctuary, there's a Triceratops nicknamed Masaru, who's given this wonderful like ribbing on the super orbital horns, which I think is a neat thing. I want to see more like you know design mess arounds with like ceratopsian anatomy. I mean, of course, I've also seen stuff where it's like basically spikes projecting out of Triceratops horns. And while I don't know if that's like a likely thing or whatever, I mean, it's something that paleo artists have been a little more daring about in recent times because it's like why just stick to just making Triceratops have these like boring, just I don't know, just sort of like like just this sort of smooth sheath over the horns. Just like try to spice it up a little. And I think that's kind of cool. Thing is, I wonder if like how I could go about this because I mean I don't know. I just love I just love the idea of drawing this animal. I don't know. Triceratops is probably just a horrid creature to be around. Funnily enough, I'm not drawing Triceratops horridus uh, while saying that sort of thing, but rather I'm drawing Triceratops prorsus, which is probably the only species that I've ever seen in my lifetime, aside from this one skull over at UC Berkeley, which belongs to a purported third species, according to Horner and Scannella. Um, but there's not really much literature on that one. It's just kind of mentioned there. In that paper, it's like, ooh, it's from this stratigraphic zone and whatever. And it's like, okay, it's from the zone. God, I fucking love that video. I just love that one. It's this one you see him Kozeman vlog video where he's like, "Take me to that zone" when he's like holding up a payphone. Peak stuff, honestly. I love it whenever he does stuff like that. And I don't know, was he like zooming in on like bread or something like that? I don't know. All I can say is that I was thoroughly entertained. I'm thoroughly entertained whenever he does stuff like that. So, yeah. Part of me is kind of regretting doing this on a Monday morning because I know it's probably too early for some folks, and it's also probably a bad day for some folks to like try to tune into a stream like this, but I'm just doing this for the hell of it. Um, like I'm pretty certain that like not too many folks are horribly active on Monday or like have the time for something like this, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll just mess around with it a little. Let's see. I just got to do that. The one thing that I really hate most about lockdown is how much it just absolutely just threw my, you know, my sense of posture down the toilet. Like, man, my shoulders are just so, like, slumped forward. I'm looking like a I need to kind of spread my chest out like that, Just, just sort of like this, just like push my shoulders back, stick out my chest. I don't know. It's something that I have to do more often. That kind of sucks, but that's life. Also got the Twin Peaks shirt on, which I got from a friend of my mother's, which was very kind of her. Um, yeah, just having lots of fun with this. Even if there's not anyone around to enjoy it, I am still happy to mess around and, just see who lands. Let's see. Let's see. What do we have for you? I know there's a Sketchfab skull. Yep, a Sketchfab scan of the holotype of Triceratops brophicornis, which I'll use for partial reference for this Triceratops process drawing, because I'm trying to see like which areas it wouldn't be a bad idea to do some sort of um like a I don't know, some sort of like cornified coverings or whatever. Because there's some stuff which I'm just absolutely not sure how to work with. I'm gonna check Instagram for a smidge. Hold on. Just gonna make sure that like things are happening the way they should. You know, goodness gracious. Um, I don't know how amazing. But yeah, I don't know. Just we got someone watching again. Hello, welcome. Just drawing a Triceratops process. Probably gonna mess around with how I reconstruct it, whatever. So just we'll see what happens. Oh, I guess they're gone. I don't know. These things are always so fickle, but can't be a too. I don't know. You can't. You gotta enjoy it while it happens, I guess. Let's see. So let's try to figure this out. So, what goes on with your head, Triceratops prorsus? I've always found the names for these like Triceratops species named by Marsh to be very intriguing, and pretty much only the Triceratops specimens named by Marsh because I don't think any other Triceratops specimens have this sort of thing going on where it's like I don't know, like if you look carefully at like the description of Marsh's Triceratops specimens, like I don't know, the species names for all of these specimens, they're pretty much all based on like the physical appearances of these things. And there's only like a handful that like, you know, there's like, a couple like I would say like around a dozen or something like that. I don't know. Like let me try thinking of some right now. Like you have like Triceratops prorsus, which prorsus means uh, you know, f- forward pointing, I guess. Which is in reference to the nasal horn. You know how instead of in Triceratops horridus, where it's a little more upright, and it's in Triceratops horridus, the nasal horn's like a little nubbin. In Triceratops prorsus, it's like a whole thing that just juts above the rostral bone, like you can see right here. And this is a pretty big thing too, like you can see right there. The nasal horn in Triceratops prorsus is like maybe I don't know, like I want to say, like whenever I've seen it, it's like a foot long or so in the skulls that I've seen, which are only two skulls. Um, you know, it's I don't know what was it used for. We don't really have anything about that. But let's see, Triceratops flabellatus. Flabellatus means scalloped, if I remember correctly. And for the case of this specimen, I mean, it's nothing really unique in Triceratops. Pretty much every Triceratops specimen you'll ever see has, scalloping on the frill, because the epoccipitals rimming it, surrounding the rim of the frill. And let's see, I'm trying to remember what else. Triceratops calicornis. Calicornis, I think, means beautiful horn because I guess it was because the horns were so beautifully preserved. Which I mean, yeah, it's also one of the most like decently preserved Triceratops specimens out there. So there's that. Triceratops horridus. Horridus is a Latin word meaning rugose, which is in reference to like the roughness of the bone texture of the skull. Um, elatus. Let's see what elatus means in Latin. Let's see. Elatus means elevated. Let's see. Triceratops elatus. I wish I could share my screen for this one, but I can't. So we're just relegated to this. But what I can say is for Triceratops elatus, I don't have the description on hand, but I have a feeling it's probably because the frill, if you look at the holotype of Triceratops elatus, the frill on the back of the skull is a little more upright pointing than some of the other specimens. Like in some of them, they're a little more they're preserved in a way which looks flattened or whatever, almost parallel to the ground. Um, there's a figure of Triceratops elatus's skull in the one of those Horner and Scannella papers on Triceratops ontogeny, which that's yeah, it's in Scannella and Horner 2011, which I have never really looked into those papers much. I just kind of look at that for any sort of information on I don't know, I just like looking at them for the pictures, let's just say. um God, there's like so many Sulcatus, Elatus, Flabellatus. Um, I'm pretty certain Ceratus was one, Calicornis, Obtusus, Prorsus, Horridus, Galeus. I don't know. There's all these names that that Marsh gave to these Triceratops specimens. Some of them they range from like really nicely preserved skulls, maybe with a little bit of disarticulation and deformation, but pretty decent display pieces. I mean, if you were to go over to the A.L. Peabody Museum before it was renovated, or well, I mean, it's being renovated right now. They're mounting some of those skeletons, or getting ready to mount some skeletons there. These skulls of Triceratops, they made for pretty good display pieces. You can find some images of you know Triceratops and Torosaurus and Chasmosaurus skulls on display in the back of their fossil hall of Mesozoic and Paleozoic animals. Like at the far end of the Age of Reptiles mural. Not that I've actually been there. I just happen to know like how all this stuff is oriented, and it's these really massive skulls. I think there's like one photo of a young Larry Whitmer online where he's um like studying the skull of Taurosaurus. I don't know when this I don't know what study this would have been for or whatever. Because as far as I know, I don't see any like studies he did on Taurosaurus in his bibliography, whatever. But I don't know. It's just massive. Like you just look at these skulls and you don't really have an idea of how large they are unless you were to see um like these skulls like like our Triceratops skulls over at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County are like 7 feet long. So like well over the size of me. I'm 5'10" for reference. So in just like the way they display these skulls, it's like basically they're mounted like I don't know, like these I just imagine like walking around them, these giant display pieces, just right in front of you, and like behind a what do you say? Behind a railing or whatever. Like I would love to see something like that. The only other time I've been able to see so many ceratopsian skulls up close like that, not really like on ground level, but just close enough where you could get a sense of scale was over at the Natural History Museum of Utah back in 2019, which I was very happy to go over to, because this is a place that I was like very excited to visit. I knew there was a whole lot that I'd wanted to see, especially the ceratopsian, family tree they have mounted up, where it's like, um, you know, all these Chasmosaurians and Centrosaurian skull casts like mounted on a wall, like if they were trophies, and you're able to see them from like a nice point where you can see all of them just like next to each other. Part of me wishes that like I could be at like if this display were like, I know this is like a kind of a, it doesn't make it feel as impressive for a lot of folks, but I'd want to like be able to walk around those skulls a little to get a sense of scale. I don't know. I've never really had the chance to, experience ceratopsian skulls in that sort of retro museum sort of way where the skulls are just kind of mounted there close to the ground, you know. That's not really something that we have around where I am. I don't think I've ever experienced that per se. It's a thing that's kind of gone away because there's better ways to mount ceratopsian skulls, whatever, in most museums. But I don't know. I just find it really intriguing. And I don't know. I just find Triceratops skulls really intriguing. I'm gonna try to see what I can do for that beak of Triceratops prorosis because it's such a absolute. It's a beast, honestly. Thankfully, there's a really nice scan of the holotype of Triceratops brevicornis, which is a synonym of Triceratops prorosis now. It's actually one of the bone ware specimens that was named after Marsh's death in 1899. Because even though, well, I mean, even after the passing of Marsh and Cope, there was still a lot of specimens to comb over and review and whatever. Because the work that these men did, I mean, some ways, some of it was okay, for the time, like Marsh's paper on Odontornithes, where it like describes all those fossils of Hesperornithines, and I want to say Ichthyornis type birds. Those types of birds. He figures them, and he describes them to the best of the for the best of the time. Of course, now we have better papers on Ichthyornis, especially now in the 2020s. Like I don't know, what was it, 2021? There was a paper on the cranial anatomy of Ichthyornis, or was it 2019? I forget. Where they reviewed all these cranial specimens of Ichthyornis, and they were like, oh, hey, look, here's all this novel information about the skull. And like just last year, I think, or was it earlier this year? I think it was in January of this year. There was a paper which reviewed all this postcrania of Ichthyornis from like several different museums. Of course, like one's in Kansas, one's in and also one's in Alabama, because there's Ichthyornis fossils in Alabama, which was kind of news to me when I first heard about it, like maybe a couple years ago. And then, Ichthyornis, like there's an Ichthyornis specimen in London that was reviewed. And, they looked at all these remains and they were able to build a more complete picture of Ichthyornis' skeleton. Because, Marsh was describing Ichthyornis from a partial skeleton initially. But, of course, with more discoveries, there comes more evaluation of like stuff like this. And also like it's just, Marsh made some pretty decent looking skeletals it at first glance. I mean they look pretty nice until you get down to the nitty-gritties of the anatomy. Like I'm pretty certain if you were to look at his Brontosaurus, you'd find a lot of very strange sort of features that wouldn't be very like that'd be very odd to someone looking at it with a more modern view of sauropods or whatever. Like what the heck is that skull shape, or the way the feet are drawn or whatever. And then there's also stuff like how you'd figure fossil bones in general, where it's like sometimes they wouldn't even be representative of the actual fossils in parts, because these were pretty much schematic drawings. Like if I remember correctly, he didn't identify the number of Stegosaurus's vertebrae accurately, which led to it being restored with a much more like, if I remember correctly, it was just led to the body being restored incorrectly for decades until folks, were actually able to study Stegosaurus skeletons and make much more informed, you know, thing discussions about the anatomy. Uh, and then of course, there's like if you look at his drawings of like the holotype Triceratops flabellatus, um, they don't look anything like the skull, especially like around the snout region. Like, what the heck's going on with that? Like, it looks so snub nosed in his drawings, but then when you look at the actual skull, it doesn't look anything like that. I don't know. It's just weird. I'm trying to think of what else there is. I don't know. He or his reconstructions of Edmontosaurus annectens, or how he called it back then, Claosaurus annectens, because this was his original classification. The skull looks really weirdly restored. I think there was like an anterior view in one of his papers, and that was like totally not what an Edmontosaurus annectens' skull actually looked like. Of course, now there's a much better idea of like what any of these dinosaurs' features were like. So thankfully now, I mean, like even in the last 30 something years, like we've gotten a better idea of like how some of these dinosaurs look because folks, have more specimens to work with and they have more specimens to, you know, choose from if they want to make a nice restoration of the skeleton or whatever. So there's that. That always is wonderful, seeing like what folks can work with now. And it makes me wonder about like other sort of papers that existed from like back then or whatever. Um, I don't know, just stuff like that's pretty intriguing. But yeah, I mean, so with Marsh's work, there was still a lot that had to be written on, like especially like whatever John Bell Hatcher discovered from the Bone Wars expeditions is basically the kind of stuff that was to be written on that was undescribed from Marsh's camp. Because it was stuff like Thescelosaurus neglectus, Ceratogallus hatcheri. I think that's a name. Yeah, it was this Mylogallid with a fairly complete skeleton from Kansas. I don't know, just for some reason the back of my head's really itchy. Nothing too bad. Trying to think of what else there is that was probably mentioned from these papers. Of course, the proposed neotype of Allosaurus fragilis was not adequately described in 1884 when Marsh first mentioned it. So Gilmore described it more in depth. I mean, to a degree, because it's like still a little iffy. Um, but it's still good stuff. If you read through it, you'll find yourself enjoying the experience of like looking at all these like really retro dinosaur papers and seeing just like how wrong all this anatomy is. Another example that I was actually thinking of when it came to how Marsh incorrectly restored dinosaur bones is with Ornithomimus. Now, in the original, not the original, was it the original description? I want to say maybe the original description of Ornithomimus velox, or the subsequent description with all those other specimens of Ornithomimus, or I don't know which one. But when Marsh's figures of Ornithomimus velox came out originally for the foot, they're reconstructed so inaccurately. Like you look at if you look at how he had the what do you call if you look at how the foot bones are restored, there's a lot of sediment that's not nicely that if you look at how the foot bones actually looked at the time when all this was being prepared, there was still sediment like in between those toe bones, meaning that like if you were to try to put those foot bones together at that time, like you wouldn't have like a correctly articulated foot. It wasn't until like the early 2000s when, or was it like 2009 or something like that? I think it was 2011, Yeah, I think in 2011 there was some repreparation done, got rid of all that sediment, and then after that, you're able to get a better picture of the tibia tarsi. Tibia tarsi? No, the metatarsals than Marsh did. Sorry, tibia tarsi is a different term, and it totally doesn't apply to ornithomimosaurs because we don't have that from them. I'm gonna take a look at Ornithomimus velox. Yeah, I think also for the hand bones there was also some messy work. Yeah, like let's see. Yeah, so and same for the hand bones. Like the hand bones weren't fully prepared, so the way they were shown in Marsh's original drawings weren't accurate. And then with like them being prepared again, you have a better idea of how they all look. Um, Now looking at the tibia tarsi, not tibia tarsi. I keep wanting to say that, but that's not what they are. In the illustrations of the foot bones, the metatarsals, or at least the left metatarsals, because that's pretty much all we have from this one. Yeah, it's just like covered in like this sort of, I don't know. There's like it just looks so grody. And then they were prepared again in 2011, and then they're a nice sort of like coffee brown, like after they're nicely prepared and whatever. And you're able to see the surfaces of the bone much more easily than before. Um, I mean, it's a little cracked in some places, but when you look at it, how it actually should have been. It looks so much better. I need to read that paper on Ornithomimus a little more. It's a pretty fun paper, it seems. But yeah, with that, there's also, yeah, I mean, like all these bones are scanned, and I guess you can make a 3D model out of these if you wanted to. I know there's like a skeletal that was done by Genya Musakawa, aka Getaway Trike, where he showed off what the remains of Ornithomimus velox were, and that was pretty striking to me. And hello, finally, another viewer. Um, Hope you're enjoying this. Ow, shoot, my wrists. Yeah, I wasn't doing much of anything with this hand, so my hands got all cracky for a moment. But fear not, I'll figure out something to do. Still trying to figure out Triceratops skull anatomy. By still trying to figure it out, I mean I've been kind of not doing much of anything with it for a bit, and then now kind of returning back to it because I'm kind of done rambling for a bit. But let's see. I gotta remember where there's like any sort of Triceratops prorsus skulls where the what do you call it? I'm trying to remember if there's like any Triceratops prorsus adult skulls where the apoccipitals are very clear to see. Yeah, Triceratops is a very metal animal. I mean, if you've ever had the chance to see like an actual Triceratops skull, which there's only so many that I know of in Europe. I know Paris has one on display. That was discovered in like what the 1930s or something like that, 1940s. I don't remember when. I know there's like probably not too many in the UK, and any of them that are on display over there are probably casts. But you know, just get what you can take. I know. Oh, I know over in Frankfurt there's some Triceratops skulls um that are on display over in the hall with all the dinosaur skeletons that they have. Um, they're just I don't know the history behind them though. I'm pretty certain they were collected by the Sternbergs or something like that. I think the Museum of the Rockies has like the best collection of like Triceratops specimens though because it's like all these skulls that were collected around Montana, and it's like an almost complete ontogenetic series that you have like on display there. From like small juveniles to like enormous adult skulls. Like there's this one skull of Triceratops prorsus they have there where it's like, it's missing like the tips of the brow horns, but it's like enormous. I think it's missing the tips of the brow horns. I don't know exactly. all I just gotta say is that, like, there's a lot of really big, enormous triceratops. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was missing the brown horns. Sometimes for, like, the big ones, they do have, like, the brown horns missing or something like that, um, which is just, it's just a thing that happens, it seems. I gotta figure it a little better. I'm drawing a specimen on display over in the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. Oh no, your laptop crashed. Well, now I'm glad to hear that it's revitalized itself because now it's yeah. I had a little rambling about Triceratops and how awesome it is because I mean, who wouldn't? I should probably try to figure out how I'm gonna draw the edges of its frill though, because this stuff kills me. Not literally, just in a figurative sort of sense where I'm like unsure how to go about restoring the beast. Yeah, the way this thing's um head looks is just incredible. I also got to remember to give it these sort of like big lumps of meat underneath the back of the lower jaw because I know in there was that one back in like the 2018s or something. Back in like the what was it like 2018 or something like that. There was this there's a work of Ali Nabavizadeh. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I just kind of winged it off of memory, where he showed off like the proposed look of ceratopsian jaws with extra muscle attached to them, and I think that looks pretty fun. Let's see. Do I think I could take Yoshi's trike in a fight? Depends on like this sort of circumstances. Like, I think if I were to jump on down from like above like the canopy of a like a tree canopy or something like that, and leap onto its horns, and then like start kicking vigorously at like the center of its skull. Maybe I could do something there. I don't know. Does Yoshi's trike have like a little fontanelle like some Triceratops specimens do? Let's see. Oh, excuse me. Had a lovely breakfast this morning. I made myself some eggs, which I am oh so proud of whenever I do so. Got to be careful not to make them too often though, because the price of eggs is it's not going down as far as I can tell. Yeah, let's see. So I'm taking a gander at this animal's skull. Unfortunately, there's not really much of a view of Yoshi's trike's skull from above, so I'm a little miffed about that. I mean, there's a lot of views from it from other angles, like there's one from the front, but like it'd be nice if I could see it from above. What I was referencing earlier is like in some specimens of Triceratops, there's these very noticeable, like I forget which species of Triceratops it is. Yeah, yeah, okay, here it is. It's what is it? The paper by what's her name? Crap, I can't remember her name. Forster 1996. There's some diagrams on the skull reconstructions of Triceratops. Just trying to show the differences between all these species, and it's like, oh yeah, here's what they looked like. Fry them up and dip them most. Oh, okay. I understand what that means now. Okay, I was like, what did he mean by that? In which case, yeah, let's see. So yeah, let's see. So YPM 1822. That is Triceratops. Okay. So in yeah, in Triceratops horridus, there's like in the frontals there's an open fontanelle. The frontals in Triceratops, if you need a reference for where the frontals are, the frontals in Triceratops are sandwiched in between the supraorbital horns. Um, you know, frontals can be sometimes diagnostic for identifying dinosaur fossils, whatever, especially in theropods. And, I don't really think that's the case for ceratopsians because, it's more so like, uh, the frill remains that are much more diagnostic for some workers. And yeah, so in Triceratops horridus, though, um, it has this like little opening in there. I don't think it really had any purpose, but that sealed up later. What I can say though, let's see, Chasmosaurus skull dorsal. Because if I remember correctly, this is kind of a like the way Triceratops, it had its skull. Like, in Triceratops prorsus, it's a bit of a deviation from most Chasmosauran skull anatomy. Because if you were to look at, say, if you were to look at the skull of Chasmosaurus, you'll notice that in the frontals there's a huge fontanelle, um, you know, which, yeah, I don't know. Triceratops pretty much breaks all the rules of being a Chasmosaurian. It's got this big, robust frill. It's, in some species, they don't even have the fontanelles above the frontals. It doesn't even have, those the fenestra on the frill. Well, I mean, depends on who you ask about that. Personally, I don't think the Toroceratops theory is a valid one, but yeah, Triceratops, cranial anatomy just is so strange and different compared to other Chasmosaurians. Especially like, if you look in some old dinosaur books, like if you were to look in David Norman's Encyclopedia of Dinosaurs, forget which year, 1986, 1985, I forget what. I think it was 1986. If you were to look at that book, you'll notice that Triceratops isn't grouped amongst, stuff like Chasmosaurus and Orhinus, no, Chasmosaurus, Pentaceratops, Taurosaurus, Anchiceratops. It's not put amongst those in those drawings, but rather it's put amongst the Centrosaurans. It's put amongst Centrosaurus. It's put amongst Styracosaurus. I think that's all that's shown: Centrosaurus, Styracosaurus, and Triceratops. I'll bring it over just for reference. And we are back. Oh, and yeah, I'll show what I'm drawing soon. I just need to show off this here page. Hope everyone's having a lovely Monday so far. Over here it is Monday morning, almost a quarter to 10. So yeah, let's see. No, yeah, this book ends with ankylosaurs. I'm so used to like the Princeton Field Guide to Dinosaurs format for dinosaur books, where I expect for ornithischians, I expect basal ornithischians first, thyreophorans, marginocephalians, and then ornithopods. But this book doesn't do that. So I have to kind of page through very carefully. Okay, that's the ornithopods. And then, let's see. Yeah. Here it is. So here's this page right here. Honestly, I really like the Centrosaurus reconstruction there. I always thought the Styracosaurus looked so intimidating, though. Look at that. It looks so edgy, just so staring us down. I love it. I mean, it's a little inaccurate now because, we know more about Styracosaurus's cranial anatomy better than like in 1986. For example, in the holotype, the parts of the frill which dip down weren't like adequately preserved. So, there's, sometimes in paleontology, there's a lot of those, things where it's like, oh my goodness, these dinosaurs, they might look awesome, but they're missing a little something. And this is, like right here. Here you have more of these ceratopsians. So you have pentaceratops up here, which I'm just gonna say it. Pentaceratops. I don't get why people even added it in these. Why they kept adding this animal to these dinosaur books when they would make it look like the blandest ceratopsian ever. Like, look at this. Look at what they've done to my boy. They've given him such a generic frill. I hate it. I hate it so much whenever they would like whenever Pentaceratops would be restored, it always had such a, very, just sort of normal looking frill because, at the time, and I think this wasn't a thing until like the 90s or so when, um, the idea of Pentaceratops having that sort of like, well, I want to say like maybe the 80s or so when Pentaceratops was restored with that sort of dip in the middle of the frill and those like really wacky epoccipitals. Like that was a pretty recent thing. But before, because of Femon's description of Pentaceratops fenestratus from I think it was 1929 or 1928, I forget which, or was it 1935? I don't know. If you look at that paper, if you even have access to it, if you look at the figures of his reconstruction of the skull of Pentaceratops fenestratus, you'll notice that he restores the front area of this, like he restores the rim of the frill, just like sort of normal, like ceratopsian sort of, like just sort of generic ceratopsian uh, frill, which I just detest. And of course, you got yourself Anchiceratops right here, which looks shocked. He looks surprised. I love it. It looks like I don't know. He looks like I don't know. He caught him on the can or something like that, and he's like, "Oh, hi." Casmosaurus is just munching away. I love that for him. Yeah, he's just having a nice helping of what are these? He's having a nice helping of cycad. Yeah, of course. And then of course you have your beloved Torosaurus represented with just shown with that ever so impressive frill, just laid against its back like like it's I don't know, like a saddle on its neck or something like that, like some kind of Star Wars creature. Yeah, just for you folks. Yeah, here's what I've worked on so far. I wanna fix up the Triceratops a little, make it look a little more, make it pop out a little more. Also, kind of make the Tyrannosaurus a little bulky too. It's not easy restoring some of these guys because you're so I don't know. You can find yourself just kind of making these guys look not as impressive sometimes, but you gotta toy around with like how you work with them. Trying to figure out how let's see. The one part that always puzzled me with Triceratops restorations is just like how to do the lower jaw. Because like in ceratopsians, they have if you look at if you know the cranial anatomy well, ceratopsians have a very, compared to theropods, and this is kind of going for ornithischians in general, partially. Of course, all ornithischians, doesn't matter which one, doesn't matter if you're Scelidosaurus, doesn't matter if you're Stegosaurus or Edmontosaurus or Iguanodon, Dryosaurus, Psittacosaurus, Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, whatever. All of these ornithischians have a predentary, which is a extra little bone in front of the symphysial uh, region of the dentaries, or where the two dentaries converge to form one mandible. Um, they have that, the cutting edge of the beak. And then for ceratopsians, they have an extra little bone at the front of their maxillae. No, the premaxilla, because in all these other ornithischians, they have the like they have like if they have a beaky sort of front of their mouth, they have a it's just made up of the premaxillae, nothing else. It's just that, with a horny covering on that. But for ceratopsians, they're pretty unique in that instead of just having a cornified premaxilla cover, instead they have an extra bone in front of that too, called a rostral. So that's pretty unique to ceratopsians. And now, like you'll notice, like in Triceratops, like there's some specimens where the rostral isn't fully preserved or whatever, so it looks a little snub nosed. And so now with so there's like two things I'm trying to figure out. Like one, how the heck do you restore the rostral in Triceratops? Which I think I've kind of gotten the hang of that one. It's not really too hard, but and there's another one which is like how the heck do you restore the predentary? Because like the predentary, I don't know, you don't really have any modern sort of animals that have something like that. So I'm just kind of unsure how to correctly do it without making it look like it's conforming too much to the bone or whatever. What I can tell is that like the tip of the predentary on the underside kind of converges around the underneath of the chin. So I should probably do that too. So yeah, let's see. And then yeah, I guess the way I'm restoring it is just fine. I just have to shade it and accurately do that. Also, I I would like to ask, to get more engagement, whatever. Feel free to share this stream around. Tell your friends about it, whatever. That I'm, drawing dinosaurs and talking about nerdy stuff. Get the ball rolling on it. Um, that's just yeah. So hopefully that helps. And like the stream too, if you can, which I'm almost certain everyone can. Um, but yeah, hopefully you folks are having a wonderful day so far. Over here, my day has barely started. I mean, breakfast it just kind of doesn't really do too much. Let's see. Now, how the heck was that restored? I'm trying to figure out one thing here, and that's the yeah, how the heck are the ears restored in Triceratops? Because it seems like if you want to restore the ears, I mean, you can't really, because like the ears are hidden when you look at them on the in the side view for Triceratops or whatever. That's really freaky. Yeah, something I haven't noticed like for like Triceratops before or whatever is just like how weird the skulls of these guys are because it's like I don't know, Ceratopsians are just a really funky bunch to work with. um, of course, I am probably going to add those, sort of rectangular scales on the underside of the neck, which I think are pretty awesome. It's sort of like I don't know. I need to look into dinosaur integument a little more sometimes because like some of this stuff can be really bizarre, frankly. Unfortunately, Triceratops, none of the Triceratops skin impressions have actually been described yet. I mean, they've been figured, but not having something figured is not the same as like having it, put down in a paper and like just a bunch of photographs isn't going to do it. You need to have like something more to it, like additional words to describe like the way things are because sometimes photographs don't tell the whole story. You need to supply additional context to it, like like how would this have been around? Like for example, like there were for decades, like ever since 1990, Carnotaurus was known to have skin impressions, and those skin impressions were figured. Were they figured well though? No. Were they figured with good enough context on like how they should have been or whatever? Not really. Um, Pretty much the only skin impressions that were ever figured of Carnotaurus were the ones around the tail, the base of the tail, where it's like it's a little patch like around the underside of the tail. We're just like kind of the ventral region. not like underneath the tail, just like kind of around. Like there's like parts of the caudal vertebrae preserved in that block. So it's just I don't know. And for a time it was like really not easy to tell like what the rest of the skin impressions were like, or like how the it would have looked with additional context, whatever. So it was just so um for a long time, like before the actual description of the skin impressions in 2022, I think it was 2022 or was it 2021? I forget. Um, Before that, it was just not easy to tell like how the heck Carnotaurus' skin should look. And I'm just kind of having the same dilemma with Triceratops in that way. Yeah, yeah, with Triceratops epoccipitals, like even in like the most large and mature specimens that I've seen, which are pretty much the only ones that I've ever seen original specimens of, like over at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County, there's two Triceratops prorsus skulls that you can very clearly see the epoccipitals are there, but they're so subtly preserved because they're like you look at younger Triceratops specimens, and especially like in Triceratops prorsus, like if you look at the holotype of Triceratops prorsus, you'll notice that the epoccipitals are pretty prominent on the rim of the frill. It's this nice scalloped edge. But the larger skulls you get to, the less obvious those markings are. Like let me find something because the Triceratops specimens that I've seen, the Triceratops prorsus specimens I've seen, these are the pretty giant ones in comparison to like the holotype in my recollection. There's and I've barely seen any like Triceratops skulls in my lifetime, unless I don't know if I were to go over to like Yale before its renovation and see their display of like Triceratops and Torosaurus and Chasmosaurus, where their skulls are all laid down like almost at eye level. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's some pretty impressive stuff. You could get a good sense of scale from there. And there's like, I don't know, it's just so wacky because there's even like if you look at I don't know how deep you have to dig for this, but I remember seeing a photo of Larry Whitmer working with the holotype of Torosaurus latus back in the 90s sometime when he looked totally different. He had like a mustache and his hair was, still black, and he was wearing glasses, just totally different guy than how he looks today. And he's sitting next to the skull of Torosaurus latus, and it's just so huge looking in comparison. I don't know, it's just freaky stuff. But yeah, let me see. So let's see the holotype. So this skull of Triceratops prorsus that we have is like, okay, the basal skull length is that big. Yeah, like so the basal skull length of the Triceratops skull that we have over here is like 110. So like about this big. This is like how big the skull is from the like the basically the skull without the frill. This is how big it is, which is like not too terribly large. But then let's see, what was it like 88 centimeters for the one? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the holotype of Triceratops prorsus, on the other hand, is like a little smaller. Like this is a much smaller skull. Like what is this? 88 centimeters. Like the basal skull length of it is like almost as long as my arm of that specimen. It's like a pretty dinky skull in comparison. I mean, not just this is and that isn't saying it's a small skull. Like this is a still fairly hefty thing, but not as hefty as say our Triceratops in LA. So yeah, the one we have in LA is just a unit. But it was like mentioned, like it was like the skull is like 7 feet long when collected or something like that. I mean, a lot of it is pretty decently preserved. I mean, part of the frill is probably not well preserved because it will if like judging from images of the collection and Also, looking at the specimen on hand, it seems some portions of the frill were restored, which, I mean, that sounds fairly, it doesn't sound too unusual for a specimen that was excavated for that time. Like, I'm pretty certain, like, any Triceratops specimen that was, worked on at that time was, you know, I'm certain there's some kind of restoration, especially if you look at like the older specimens, like from the Bone Wars, or whatever. Like, there's definitely restoration on those. It's like, yeah, no way those weren't restored because, like, I don't know, there's some specimens where the restoration is very clear. Oh, and especially like on other Bone Wars ceratopsians, like if you were to look at the holotype skulls of like Torosaurus latus and Torosaurus gladius. Oh my goodness, they are so restored, especially especially Torosaurus gladius. I mean, oh, what was it? Let me look at the figures for it, because like there's like only one paper which kind of does justice to like knowing the anatomy of Torosaurus's skull by figuring specimens that were recently discovered. Like, there's the Museum of the Rocky specimens that hadn't really been published yet, and this was back in like 2007, I think. So I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so the most complete skull known up to that time was the skull on display over at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia, and that one, it was missing portions of the frill, like not too much of it, but and also like the tip of the snout, not too bad, really. And then for the the type skulls over at Yale. For damn it, not Triceratops. For Torosaurus latus's holotype, uh, the snout's missing. The tips of the what is it? What is it called? Supraorbital horns are missing. Most of the frill is missing, and then there's like parts of the cheek on the right side, and like, I don't know, there's a lot of plaster in parts, and it was really difficult for Andrew Farkey, who was the one describing these skulls again, to get a good idea of like how much was restored and how much was original, because some of them, there's like paint and whatever over the specimens he was examining, because so back then in like the 1800s, and then like I want to say like maybe until the 1980s, some people started getting sense into their heads about like how these specimens should be treated. They like dinosaur skeletons, or I just like just skeletons in general, just fossil specimens in general, were thought of as display pieces first, and then research specimens later. It's kind of a really aggravating thing in the history of paleontology, because it's like like for example, over in the Field Museum of Natural History, um, there's skeleton of Daspletosaurus. Um, it was pretty much one of the best known, because it was like uh, I mean, there's like, of course, there's like Daspletosaurus skeletons known where it's like, there's, if I remember correctly, for this skeleton of Daspletosaurus, there's like a femur preserved. Um, there's also, I think there were gastralia associated with it, or I think the gastralia were just like mock-ups that were mounted for it. But anyway, there was like the way it was mounted was in the 1950s, was a process which involved like basically putting like the armature through the bones, which is a destructive process, because that means you're essentially having to break through bone to hide the armature, whatever. It was like, so it would be like, aha, look. Um, I don't know. It's just such a dumb thing to do. And yeah, if I remember correctly, the femur was like broken apart so that it could have like a metal rod, to be inserted through it or something like that. It was horrible. And nowadays, of course, it's like, well, you wouldn't do that like with such specimens. Like, I think now, I mean, of course, like casting techniques have gotten better, figuring out how to mount specimens. There are companies that are willing to do this, you know, much more artfully than how it was done decades ago. So, I mean, even like mounting original specimens, there's like ways where you can do it where it's not gonna absolutely destroy like the integrity of the bones. And there's even some mounts where it's like it's done in a way where if you wanted to go and if you wanted to study a certain bone from the mount, you could just go up there and just remove it because the armature is in a way where you can easily remove bones from that mount. If I remember correctly, the holotype of Parasaurolophus criticus over at the Field Museum, um, it has its bones mounted that way, the postcranian namely, because the skull they have on that mount is a reconstructed skull. The original skull is in the collections of the Field Museum because it's too fragile to mount up there. And also, it's not really the prettiest looking thing around. It's frankly, it's like a pretty substandard Parasaurolophus skull. The skull of in the collection of the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, while not like the most complete Parasaurolophus skull, it's better preserved. The bone looks, a lot more clean and sheeny, not as, grody looking as the Field Museums. That's probably because like the Field Museums was collected, from an earlier time. What was it like collected in the 1920s? And I don't know, preparation techniques didn't exactly make, these bones look prettier. I feel like any bones that have been like collected a little more recently look a little less ugly, in my opinion. That's just how it is for me, at least. Like, I don't know. Depends on like what you're looking at. Like sometimes it depends on like the institutions that work with these skulls, whatever. Sometimes, and sometimes it's not even the fault of preparators. It's just like, the preservation just doesn't make it look good. Like, there's like there's some Triceratops skulls which, look really wonderful. Like they almost look like, ignoring the color and maybe restoration, they look like they could have been like picked out of they were taken from a freshly dead individual. And then there's some Triceratops skulls which are so weathered and eroded and crusty looking that they just look like they're ready just to crumble in front of you, just if you even looked at them. That sort of stuff. That only it only happens if you get into like ceratopsian. I don't know. It depends on like what you want for like your dinosaurs. Do you want like I don't know. Fossils are very interesting when you get into all the different aspects of like preservation or whatever. Um, let's see. I am also gonna have to do the rims on the orbit because remember, if you look at like Triceratops skulls, you'll notice that there's like very prominent sort of like um, there's a around the front of the orbit there's like a very prominent sort of ridges around there, so that's pretty interesting looking. But yeah, let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to do the nasal horn accurately, or in a way that could be interesting. Good lord, what's going on? There any hot news off the press? Hot off the presses? I could only imagine there's some shenanigans abound. I should probably draw some sort of like pathologies. What is this called? Now what's that called? Yeah, there goes. Yeah, I'm gonna take a look at that paper on Triceratops combat. Just sending that message just now. Ooh, youch. My condolences. Oh, the femur splitting. Oh yeah, yeah. Mounting is a funny thing. I don't think any of the dinosaur mounts that we have over at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County have that sort of chicanery going around. As far as I can tell, the mounting was done by Research Casting International, if I remember correctly, which they were also the folks who worked on the Smithsonian, and also I think they're the ones currently working on the ALP Body Museum's mounts. Um, and I mean, they really prioritize, having specimens be workable, like, future paleontologists, going along, and wanting to work with like whatever's mounted. Okay, you could just go and grab like whatever bones you need. And and there's some specimens where they had to pretty much like forfeit like displaying some portions. Like for example, I think like most of like I think for Thescelosaurus neglectus's holotype, I think the specimen's now back in collections and it's represented mostly by a cast because the actual specimen was mostly unprepared. What was it? The specimen was mostly, just sitting up in a. It was basically in the wall of the dinosaur hall of the Smithsonian for decades on end. I mean, originally it was shown how it was originally articulated, without the skull restored until maybe around when Parksosaurus was described, and then they decided to make a skull based on Parksosaurus for Thescelosaurus in that exhibition, and also kind of disarticulated a bit. And then when finally in 2014 they had to take apart the hall, there were a lot of specimens which they had to basically remove from the walls because they were embedded in there. And there were some which like there was still matrix adhering to the bones, like in the holotype of Ceratosaurus nasicornis, which had been basically a plaque mount for decades on end. Well, ever since it was on display, it was always a plaque mount. You know, it was then taken off display, and then they look at they looked at this skeleton, and there's still sandstone on the bones. So, and then they had to prepare that again. Um, and they're looking to do some more research on some of these specimens because it's like we haven't seen these like because like some of these were so unworkable for decades. Like for example, the holotype of Admonosaurus annectans, the it's incredible. The skeleton was mounted like 3 or 4 like 4 meters above ground level. Like if you were walking around in those halls, it was like up there, up with a Gorgosaurus skeleton up there. So when they're taking apart the halls, they had to take down those mounts on the wall because like these things were like only visible to visitors if you were like on the second story of this hall, which thankfully this decided to dismantle all that. And now the Gorgosaurus is just represented by a skull, which is like at eye level, and the Admonosaurus is now on the ground. So there's a lot of things which, now people are, it's easier to see some of these specimens. It's like incredible, just like how like wonky some of these, just how wonky some of these things were. Let's see. So 1828 and 1822. So let's see. I'm looking at this one. Yeah, I'm looking at this paper called Evidence of Combat in Triceratops, which I think really nicely shows just how, these sorts of things would have looked. However, I don't know how to really draw pathological sort of things with animals, make them look believable. I mean, I guess I could show like, I don't know, let's see. I want to see what like scarring looks like on lizard faces or whatever. Like, cause I don't know, just like some sort of like, I don't know, just any sort of like scarring. If any of you folks have any references for like, reptile pathologies or whatever, do feel free to share them on Discord or whatever, because I'm really lost on like how I could restore this or any tips for that, I guess. Yeah, let's see. I guess I could ask a dear friend who I know specialize in that sort of thing. And yeah, I am gonna show Triceratops with some injuries because, of course, I think something that like needs to be done more often in paleo art is like normalizing showing like dinosaurs with like injuries because like of course dinosaurs weren't like squeaky clean all the time. Dinosaurs got messed up a lot. Like I think like if you're gonna draw like an old like fully grown adult Tyrannosaurus, like if you're gonna draw something like Sue, you got to show it with maybe like a it's like foot looking like really like stiff and I don't know arthritic and of course there's all those injuries like if you look at the belly of Sue, the gastralia are really like they look really just kind of crusty and mushed up because this thing got battered and whatever and there's like lesions on the legs and there's like scarring on the bone. It's crazy stuff. Of course there's like um those purported like lesions on the jaw from like a protozoan or something like that that's been reported on, but that has recently been called into question because it's like is this actually evidence of this sort of thing? Like hold on, Tyrannosaurus, what is it called again? There's a paper that calls into question this sort of thing, which yeah, it's a short paper if I remember correctly, which is like this which claims this doesn't look like a sort of injuries that you'd see on these birds, but rather looks like instead uh it says like perhaps yeah, let's see. Um, yeah, a brief summary on Wikipedia says a more recent study examining the pathologies concluded that the osseous alteration observed most closely resembles those around healing human cranial trepanations and healing fractures in the Triassic reptile Steganolopus. In the absence of infection, the possible cause may have been intraspecific combat. So this is in a paper from late 2022. So this is like this is in December of last year, where it was saying, yeah, this doesn't look like puncture marks that would be made by the infection, but rather face biting, which that's also valid as well. But I'd love to see a response to it. Maybe there will be a response from the original authors of that paper who claimed that these horrible looking markings on Sue's chin, like a back of the jaw, were like infection or whatever. Just something like that would be really interesting to see. I'd love to see more discourse on that. It's always fun seeing these sorts of things with scientific literature. Trying to gauge like what these sorts of things would look like, or just like trying to understand like how something is like as awesome as like some of these conclusions sound. It's always worth noting like there's always it's not so black and white. Like of course like whenever a paper's put out, it's not so set in stone. You have to keep in mind that like sometimes something that sounds a little sensationalistic in terms of like what's announced, it might not be what it is. So as that speaks. Mhm. Um, yeah, I don't know. Just like papers can be like there. You should carry an ounce of like skepticism when it comes to some papers talking about like behavioral stuff or anatomy or whatever. But like you know, I mean, of course, if the evidence doesn't sound too choppy, I think you can work with it. That speaks against it being France, anyways. Um, well, the paper in question on the whole thing about the the lesions on the face. Uh, I don't know, just like it's a short communication. It's just one of those papers where it's like, ooh, we might not know like what Sometimes short communications, they can feel a little meh, like, in terms of, like, what they're communicating. Like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like you wish there was more, but, like, sometimes you don't need a whole bunch of paragraphs to explain something, or I don't know. There's even still, like, all those, like, there's, like, backs and forths on, like, there's this one paper which goes back and forth and, I don't know, what was it, like, that Allosaurus was a exclusive scavenger or something like that, I don't know. It was, like, some recent thing where it was like, "Ooh, Allosaurus was most likely, like a, uh, it was probably more of a scavenger than a hunter," and it's like, are you really sure about that? I don't know. It'd be I don't know, and then there's some responses to papers where they're absolutely bonkers, like, back when he was alive, Lingham Soliar had some absolutely ridiculous responses to some papers. Like, when, the ornithomimid skeleton from, what was it? Yeah. What was it called? When the response to, what was his name? The what was his name? Van der Riest's paper, Van der Riest et al.'s paper on this ornithomimid skeleton in 2016, 2015, describing, additional soft tissue, um, including, bare skin found in the legs. They were looking at this bare skin and also, additional feather imprints and saying like, "Ah, yeah, this is indicative of this is like how the integument would have looked here." Lingham Solier just like responded with the most absolute bonkers sort of thing of like this isn't proper science or something like that. Just I don't know. If you look at the abstracts, it's actually incredible. Like what this man would like, the audacity this man had like to respond to papers like that. Unfortunately, um, as of I want to say like maybe last year or something like that, or maybe 2021. I forgot when. Aaron Van Der Riest's, I mean, it's not like Aaron Van Der Riest is a clean character either. He has been accused of some very suspicious and not so savory sort of things, let's say. Um, However, there's not really been much in the way of that in terms of updates. Whatever. It's just no. It's been kind of radio silence ever since the accusations have been made. Whatever. So I'm wondering like if there are any updates on that front or whatever. But yeah, and yeah, for Allosaurus, it's like I don't know. Like I mean, we certainly have feeding traces from Allosaurus, but like that's probably like after it was like at like definitely after whatever it was trying to eat was just yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I mean, I do find the idea of like Allosaurus, just like doing the sort of like just like grab and go sort of tactic with those, like with large sauropods. I mean, that sounds sort of interesting. But I mean, of course, like I think it's more likely that, because this was an animal with grabby hands and like, these really robust arms and like hooked claws. Like I feel like, it'd be more ideal that, you'd probably see like an Allosaurus like grabbing onto a small diplodocid, like, a little baby, like barely the size of a horse, like just grabbing onto it, hooking its claws in and just like nabbing it and, probably kicking it down. Like, I don't know, just like, like the Allosaurus is in, what is it that, the Allosaurus in, Dino Planet, that that early 90s, educational anime. Or I don't know, same with Ceratosaurus. Like I keep thinking about the introduction of the Ceratosaurus in there, where like one of the first things it does is like barge out of some cycads and then lunges onto a Diplodocus baby and just like kicks it down to the ground. It's incredible. Yeah, let's see. Carcharodontosaurus from Dinosaur Planet. I have Planet Dinosaur. I almost read that as Dinosaur Planet because I remembered there were Carcharodontosaurs shown in that too. And then I realized you were talking about a much later television series. By the way, can you believe that Dinosaur Planet is now like, what is it going to be like 20 years old as of this year? Pretty incredible, isn't it? Yeah, I remember, messing around on Discovery's website, with whatever they had on dinosaurs, and that was pretty fun. Yeah, I don't know. There's like a lot of documentaries that are reaching uh our 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 age range. Yeah, there's a lot of good documentaries that came around at that time. What was it like when Dinosaurs Roamed America came out in like 2001, I think. Performance heavy software open. That is incredible stuff. I'm sorry to hear about that. Yeah, yeah, Dinosaur Planet, I mean, I still think it's pretty incredible. The cool thing about it is that, they really did add some, they added some really nice taxa into the bunch, as well as some pretty interesting environments. Of course, with like new discoveries now, there would of course be like some taxa omitted and also probably some better inclusions. Like, I mean, for each of them, you can clearly like say like now like, oh, this is based on this sort of like, the most of this is based on this sort of environment, whatever, or this sort of locality or discovery, whatever. Like Light Tip's journey, as far as I can tell, not really based on any discovery per se. Like, sure, the fighting dinosaurs is referenced around the end, but it's not really too big on like discovery. For Alpha's egg, I mean, of course, Alca Malhuevo is very clearly represented there. And also the somewhat recent description of Alcasaurus is referenced there. And then for what is it, Pod's Travels, um, that's that's very clearly showing off like the sort of newish discoveries over in, well, I mean, the sort of newish uh, publications on dinosaur specimens from the Hatzeg Basin in Romania. I mean, though I find that episode to have like some of the worst like assignments for certain animals and the worst sort of like, what do you say, like how they refer to certain animals, and then like how certain animals look. It just ugh. Two big gripes. They call the Zalmoxis, which are showed around, I want to say Zalmoxis and Raptidon, because like the ones that are shown in France, those are very clearly supposed to be like Raptidon. Um, those it's they call them Iguanodon, which Iguanodon was certainly extinct by the time you know the Hatzeg Islands, before that area was in existence, and as far as I know, didn't reach Romania at all. I mean, you have Iguanodon specimens from the UK, you have them from I think in Germany, and then in Belgium, of course, and then also in Spain. But as far as I know, never reached Romania. And then the one that really irks me now that I know a little more about how these things looked and whatever, Allodapasuchus. It is so lazy how they rendered it. Like, because if you know anything about Allodapasuchus, the way they showed it off in the documentary, they just took the Notosuchus and reskinned it. That's all they did. But if you look at Allodapasuchus, it's radically different than that. Like, let me find some images of it. Like, I could probably find uh there's like some species of there's some taxa that have been referred to Allodapasuchus in recent years, including some specimens from some species from Spain and France. You know, Let me find some. I don't know. There's like these are not at all like they do not look anything like what was shown off in Dinosaur Planet, and it's just incredible like how horribly these things are rendered. But yeah, here's like the top view of I think a specimen from the Hatzeg Basin, like right there. You see that? That's nothing like what was shown in Dinosaur Planet. And then there's one of the referred species um, of Alodapasuchus. is just incredible looking. There's this one species which used to be known as Lorecosuchus megadontus, which you're just gonna have to see this thing to believe it. Cause look at those chompers, you know? This is a really, really robust looking thing. It's incredible. And it's such a shame that they absolutely bungled the design of Aladapasuchus in Planet Dinosaur. Not Planet Dinosaur, Dinosaur Planet. Sorry. It's a little confusing when they kind of have overlapping sort of topics too. Like, Dinosaur Planet, has both these documentaries have Daspletosaurus, both of them have, Hatzeg Island, and both of them have what is it? Both of them have, I think, some Mongolian stuff. No, not really. Not really. I mean, they have Gigantoraptor and Planet Dinosaur, but that's not necessarily Mongolian. But yeah, I don't really think the Saltosaurus was done that badly. I think it's okay for a model. I think though, if I will say from the episode, I think the Carcharodontosaurs look a little janky, but I mean that's just more of like how they were represented at the time. Because like Carcharodontosaur anatomy wasn't like fully understood. Um, I don't know, just it's not the worst, but yeah. Oh, I also forgot Tarascosaurus is in. I also forgot it's in the Hatzeg Island episode. The face is just funny looking because I think I'm very certain it's based on Bonitosara, but at least in lateral view, I don't know. I'm trying to remember what the heck they could have used for reference. It's a shame that a lot of the concept art is practically lost because the Wayback Machine's capabilities have been stunted ever since the death of what is it, Adobe Flash Player in 2020, or like any of those like Flash Player sort of thingamajigs. Where I don't know, it's so sad looking back at it, and like all this stuff is now lost because you can't you can't access it like like so many things are like I don't know like I'm pretty certain like you can't like if you tried revisiting, and this is a little bit of a like a sort of like a certain sort of Gen Z sort of thing, but if you were ever like a someone who grew up like visiting the website of PBS kids shows um in your younger years, like almost all the stuff there was like flash games and whatever, and now it's all pretty much gone into the fire, never to be touched again. It's just sad, but end of an era kind of stuff. The Word Girl website. I barely remember Word Girls like games or whatever. I don't know. I was always like picking around through like the really old like um I don't know, just like any of like the like it was more of like the shows that were not on PBS Kids at the time when, Adobe Flash was still around. Like, I was like always poking around on the Sagwa and like what do you call it? What else? Eco World? I don't know. Just like a bunch of websites. I still remember, playing around with like the Wildcrats um, games or whatever. Like, dang, that was some that was like really fun to work with. Now I just like, I mean, of course, I haven't really gone back because, well, I'm like 20 years old, and I don't know, it just feel weird kind of poking back into that. I mean, like now I like, I could probably talk about this, like maybe do a rant about like, oh yeah, I remember all this stuff, but I feel like now, I don't know. I mean, thankfully, there's like other folks covering that stuff, people who are like big into it and willing to also go back and like poke through like whatever sort of uh content there was. And thankfully, like I don't know, there's like some YouTubers who like like Defunct Land for certain like did content like that on TV shows, which I really adore from that. Just just adore that for like anyone who's willing to put hours and hours of research onto that. Yeah, let me share. I'm gonna ask a friend how I would do this. Let's see. His name is no. I'm gonna say I'm just gonna add some markings on like where I would add scarring. I'm just gonna, just put like little dots, just kind of like just sort of yeah, yeah, just that sort of stuff. Also certainly gonna have to add some like bumpies on the just like some large lumpy scales on the middle of the frill. That'd be fun. Excuse me. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. I just love this sort of stuff. Gosh. I need to take a taste of more songs by Steve Winwood. Any of you ever heard Arc of a Diver? It's a pretty fun album. Do I remember Dino Dana and Dino Dan? I have never seen Dino Dana, but I do recall maybe a little Dino Dan. I am familiar with some of the models from either of those two. There are some folks who I'm acquaintances and friends with who are a little more who know those shows a little better, mostly due to geographic and generational circumstances. Like, for example, like I'd say the Peanut Pal is probably like the person who knows about it like the most in my circles. Uh, both by the both from the fact that he's Canadian and also that also slightly younger than me. So yeah, I don't know. I was young enough to remember Dinosaur Train debuting though. Or young enough? Old enough. Young enough, old enough. I don't know. I was young enough to see Dinosaur Train debut and be like, okay, yeah, this seems interesting. Did I see Prehistoric Planet? Every day it came, like a new episode came out, I was on it. I was watching every one of them. Um, now, now the big problem is when it comes to season 2 of Prehistoric Planet, because oh, that's when the real trouble comes in. Because I don't know who I would be leeching off of for an Apple what is it, an Apple TV Plus subscription, unless I were to watch it with someone, unless I were to ask someone who happened to have it, like, hey, do you have Apple TV Plus? Could we watch it together or something like that? I don't know. But yeah, because now with the announcement of season 2, now I'm like, dang it, now I don't know where I'm going to be able to watch it. I don't know. I I try to stay on top of like some paley media. There's like of course some of like the more kitschy, like trashy modern stuff. Like I don't know. Like there's like I didn't see that Stephen Fry dinosaur documentary. I didn't see Dino Hunters, that one really egregious looking documentary about like, ooh, we're collecting dinosaur skeletons and we're like showing off like us like we're just going to show off like how much all this is worth. Make some money, my little honey, and we'll watch lots of Prehistoric Plenty. Maybe I will. Maybe I will. Who knows? I mean, I could easily just say like, um, I can get myself a career in Korea. Nah, nah, I'm not Depeche Mode. Yeah, that was such a corny ass joke. I'm sorry. um, no. That I still think that is such a stupid lyric from them in Everything Counts, that song. Never doubt yourself for this. I mean, I don't know. There's like there's more I'd think of, but yeah, let's see. I'd probably also do like the facial scarring on Tyrannosaurus a little better. Oh, excuse me. Gosh, I need to get some more protein in me. Eggs aren't enough. I'd probably want to also have like a spoonful of peanut butter. My condolences to those who are allergic. Yeah, I love peanut butter so much. It is like one of my top 5 foods out there. You know, and it's such an incredibly versatile substance. Just gotta love it. So yeah, why not? I'm just gonna add another. add some more lesions because I wanna make it. This is just like a short communication that I'm only looking at, and I just wanna kind of get over, like, whatever else there might be. Okay, I could do, like, some sort of, like, let's just do that, just, like, yeah, and then I'll add, like, some bumpy scales on the parts of the frill. My fellow peanut butter fan, did you see the guy dry aging a steak in peanut butter? No, I have not, but I suspect it might be tasty. I don't know, I had Thai food yesterday, and, chicken with, peanut sauce is pretty good. Gosh, I love Thai food. I don't know. I need to be a little more, I need to get around with Thai food a little more. I don't eat it as much, I regret to say, same with I don't know, same with Korean food, or I don't know, what else would I want to have more of? I don't know. Usually, like, what I eat I hate to say this, but, like, what I eat on a weekly basis is, like, just whatever's cooked for dinner, which it could be, like, salad with chicken and maybe, or maybe veggie burgers or whatever, and then for, like, lunch, it's probably either El Pollo Loco or Subway, either of those 2. Mostly because I have a lot of coupons of them for them, and because they're pretty close by to my school. And I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, I mean, it's probably gonna drain my savings fast, but I don't know. Uh, I don't know, bacon chicken ranch, a foot long with garlic aioli and lots of pickled vegetables and um jalapeno bread go brrr, just I love that stuff so much. Oh god, now I want Subway. I want to go out and get myself a sub, a foot long. But alas, I am going to make myself something else because I do not want to dry up my savings. Anyway, let's draw some of those little scales. Not really little because these things would probably be like the size of my fist if I were like seeing these things up close. I want to see how the I admit that I'm looking a little at Andrei Atuchin's reconstruction of Triceratops for a smidge of a reference when it comes to figuring out the cranial anatomy. I should probably turn off the what do you call it? Turn off the just base color. No, not base color. What is it? Metalness? I think it's metalness. No, no, wrong one. Roughness? No. Emission? Specular F0. No, ew. Matte cap? There it goes. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes whenever I mess around with like models of skulls on Sketchfab, what I do is like I try to what I do is I then I just turn off all the colors so that I'm able to see the skull as it looks without any sort of fancy schmancy lighting effects and whatever. Hello, welcome. I am just drawing some dinosaurs and also trying to figure out how I would reconstruct this here Triceratops skull. I love Triceratops so freaking much. Jeez. Yeah, let's see. It has been a long while, but yeah. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so yeah, just gonna have to show off what I'm working on. Uh, let's see. Just trying to make sure that it looks like it pops out at some degree, Just like, just like how it should, you know? Um, Gonna need to try to figure out how to draw like the base of the horns for Triceratops though. Probably some sort of like cracky skin around the backs of it or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. You could do a lot with Triceratops skulls and just get away with it because it's like I don't know. Ceratopsian skull anatomy, not really something that is entirely figured out. There's always room for speculation and whatever. So no harm in messing around a little and testing the waters on like what you could show off. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's a little something fun. I just love Triceratops for like how robust and ugly you can make it. Um, yeah, so looks like we have 2 likes on this. Amazing. We love to see it. We love to see a little engagement. Engagement. Aha. Yeah. I am a master of comedy now. You just say the word gay next to everything like what's his name? Like Pierce Hawthorne in Community and Sunlight's funny. I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with this Triceratops so far, actually. That's what it looks like now. Holy moly! I'm just getting the details down straight. But I should probably start by like adding the shading too, because like I want to make it look a little um less strange. What's my favorite dinosaur media? Ooh, this is a something that is an interesting question to ask because depends on what you mean by media. Are we talking just like, like movies and movies and TV series and whatever, or are we talking like visual media where it's like, movies and whatever, or are we talking, books or I think that's just pretty much the range. Just like, you know, just like stuff like in books or yeah, just that's gonna or are we talking paleo art, whatever, I'd be I'd like to know. Uh, but since before we were talking about mostly like visual media that was like you know series and movies and whatever. Prehistoric Planet was pretty good. I enjoyed that quite a lot. Um, I mean, can't go wrong with the original Jurassic Park trilogy. Um, they're not all equally as good. Like personally, I'll like say the first movie is pretty much the best. I do have a big soft there. I do have a soft spot for both The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, though. Um, you know, I haven't watched too much of the Ray Harryhausen sort of dinosaur movies that he worked on. I thought Valley of Gwangi was enjoyable for what it was. I think in terms of like something you can kind of get behind a little better, I would say maybe 1 million years BC is a little more my time. I I don't know, just excuse me. Some of those like, British, you know, dinosaur action movies, like sometimes it can be so dull. Like sometimes there's way too little happening in some parts and let some sunlight in. I want to make this room a little more sunlit. I'm just gonna it sucks so much. Trying not to get the the curtain rod to fall apart, but yeah, there. I mean, it did jack really because there's no sunlight coming in from here. It's fairly cloudy out today, but let's see. There's also some more obscure stuff I'm into. Sometimes it's like usually like the sort of one-off documentaries and series, whatever, that came around you know, maybe like 30 years ago or something like that. Like one good example is this Japanese like early 90s dinosaur anime called Kyoryu Wakusei or which literally means dinosaur planet in Japanese. And it's about this little girl who's like traveling through the Mesozoic with this sort of weird bobblehead, dinosauroid baby. Um, it's the representatives of like dinosaurs are like the representation's incredible, and some of these dinosaurs are pretty certain were given their first sort of like um visual media, like in terms of like animated stuff, whatever. Like I'm pretty certain that was their debut. Like you have Postosuchus and Carnotaurus and um, Barusuchus and Noasaurus, Amargasaurus, whatever. Like all these animals are shown through this, and it's also wonderful because, it just doesn't feel like it's bound by cliches. However, it's only visible in the Internet Archive now, and unfortunately, none of it is translated. So when I was watching it, I kind of had to just sit around and just think, like, okay, what could be happening here? It's just how it is sometimes with this. Um, and also, I'm a big fan of that one PBS 1991 dinosaur documentary where it had these animated sequences where, like, one of them was like a Tyrannosaurus and her chicks being antagonized by a Triceratops. Triceratops like snorting and like making like these loud, like just like these loud sort of like honking noises, and then the both of them, get in a tussle. Like the Tyrannosaurus then just tears into its neck muscles and just brings it down for and its chicks to feed on. And there was another where you might have seen this around because it's a GIF that you can easily search up if you look up Ceratosaurus. But there's another animated sequence where it's a Stegosaurus being antagonized by a Ceratosaurus. Um, it's like this orange sort of Ceratosaurus. Stegosaurus is like this sort of like slate gray with like sort of like a like terracotta colored plates. And then, there's really nice shots of like the Stegosaurus like flattening its plates and then just sort of like shoving its like its tail in front of the camera and just sort of like sort of slouching down in a defensive posture. And the Ceratosaurus like just barely being like just almost getting skewered by the spikes. So it's that's another segment that I think some folks would recognize. And another segment that's a little less widely seen by some folks is one where it's a it starts off with a Chiniquodon emerging out of its burrow, and it's eaten by an Herrerasaurus, which plucks it out, grabs it by its neck and just snaps its neck, and then he just swallows it up. And then later, this Herrerasaurus with another Herrerasaurus then sees a Hyperodapodon, which they both kill, and the Hyperodapodon looks ugly as sin and makes it makes those like, cliche, like, sort of like weird prehistoric animal sort of noises. It's a sound effect that I think was like taken from like baby jaguars or something like that. It's like, that sort of one, if you're familiar with it. Um, I know it was used for the Petrolacosaurus in Walking with Monsters, which, yeah, I don't know. There's like only so many that I know use this, but yeah. Yeah, and then the Hyperodaptodon gets murked, and then a Saurosuchus comes barging out of the forest and then steals it away, and just chomps down on it. Yeah, that's. Oh, and then there's also another sequence where it's like a bunch of ammonites being filmed in like a really dark ocean, and then a Mosasaurus comes out and then just crunches on one of them. It looks so beautiful. And there's like another sequence where it's Ichthyosaurs like swimming through like a Jurassic Sea and then lunging out, and then you see some Rhamphorhynchus type pterosaurs flying by the camera. That's the most I remember. Um, if you're you might be familiar with the art style if you've seen um, Encyclopedia Britannica's pages on dinosaurs, um, which you can still find online. They're really retro looking. They're really nice representations of all these dinosaurs like that. Just shown, in lateral view with like, a chicken or a person to scale, or I guess even a bus at some points. I don't recall exactly off the top of my head, but really fun, sequences, to sit through. But, that was a really fun one, especially, because they had like Bob Bacher kind of behind this documentary series in the early 90s. But yeah, those are some of my favorite like paleo media. Like in terms of like movies and books and no, not books, sorry. In terms of, like, movies and TV series, whatever, you know. Oh, also, I thought Dinosauria from, like, 2021 to 2022, I thought that was pretty good. If I had to pick one episode that I really liked. Um, can't go wrong with, can't go wrong with their debut, Old Buck. I mean, you got Styracosaurus, you got Daspletosaurus, and you got gore. Works for me. um, and then okay, now to answer chat, let's see. Have I seen Walk with Dinosaurs in the press Prehistoric Planet 3D? Uh, Walk with Dinosaurs. I'm assuming you're talking about the 2014 movie, with the art by David Krantz, whatever. I like that movie for the visual effects, not so much for the voiceovers and whatever. That the voiceovers really are a downgrade for it all. Um, but I really do think David Krantz's designs are really nice. It's a shame that I unfortunately only have one bit of merchandise from that time, which is a little troodonted model. Which that's it. That's the only thing I've ever gotten from that time frame. Thankfully, I've met David Krantz on a couple of occasions. I really think he's a nice guy. Hopefully, I could see him again sometime because I'd really love to, just like sit down, have a chat. I don't know, over lunch or something like that. Who knows? Trying to think of what else there is that I was, yeah, and then yeah, it's like pretty much. Let's see. Now, what's my favorite color? Now, oof, too many to pick from in this great, great, beautiful world. But you know, I can't deny. I've always been a big fan of olive green. I think it's a nice hue. I've always found it the most aesthetically pleasing sort of bunch in a nicely packed colored pencil set. That's my opinion on that sort of thing. Just dark greens in general, just very attractive looking. But yeah, so I just had a lot of, I don't know. It's different, like, colors can be like, sometimes it depends on like my mood or something like that. So, just depends on like what you're into and like what you think works for the moment. I don't know. Cause like, I don't know. I can think of like, I don't know, sometimes color combinations are more of like what I'm into. Like, I don't know, especially it's helped, especially if you like were to peer through like my favorite album covers, which there are a lot of. That I see them and I'm like, this is really aesthetically pleasing. There's like some really neat color combinations or really interesting choices of how you know things look, like the artistic styles and photography or whatever. Like, I'm a big fan of dramatic lighting in album covers. Like, I don't know if you look at the album cover for the Michael Schenker Group's debut. I think that's a pretty good cover. Nice dramatic lighting, whatever. Um, I don't know. I always like to say this, and I know, I mean, you could just watch my video on this if you wanted to, but I really like a lot of the covers by Hypnosis, the album covers by Hypnosis, where it's like really quirky, sort of like strange photography and whatever, like, photographs of the band or whatever. And there's like some weird stuff going on, or it's like some really quirky looking um, things going on. Like, there's this one album cover for um, this band, Brand X. I've never listened to them, but I know a couple of their covers. And this one from 1980 is called "Do They Hurt?" And it's like the cover image is just like a lady, like, I think standing in front of a, like, you're only looking at down, like, from like around, like, where her ankles are, pretty much, like or around her calves. I don't know. Off the top of my head, that is. I should just actually just show it because this is just defies just like trying to explain it all. Just like I don't know, just this sort of like really strange sort of photography. Let's see. Do they hurt Spotify? What I found to be very helpful is if you're trying to like look at like album covers in like really nice sort of I want to say like high resolution, just like you just look up the album and just, try to get it on Spotify. That works because then you're able to see it in high definition and whatnot. Yeah, so here it is. Do They Hurt by Brand X. I don't even know what the music's like or whatever, but here's the album cover. That's what I was talking about. It's a lady walking towards a crocodile. I just love it because it looks so sinister. Actually, wait. I might be wrong. This doesn't look like a crocodile too much. Maybe it's a caiman. I'm really not that good at telling at first glance, but I just like it because it has like a sort of like eerie sort of urban setting, like suburban setting. I don't know, like imagining that. That's some pretty freaky stuff, but I love it. I almost feel tempted to do something like that, but except it's Dinosuchus. So it would be like an enormous sort of like bus-sized thing, like walking out of the street onto someone's lawn. That would be freaky as hell. Like, yeah, I think that would be a quite quite a fright. All right, just had to clean off that, and let's just add more. Yeah, let's see. So, what else do we have to say, folks? What do you have to say for yourselves? Yeah, not Philoceratops negging their chat. Yeah, I would never neg my fans. Yeah. Okay. In all seriousness though, I might go on for like 10 more minutes if that's the case. Otherwise, I feel like in a little bit of time, I'm gonna start getting a little peckish and well crap, it's already 11 in the morning and I'm getting peckish. That's a bad sign. Um yeah, I think now is not lunchtime, but I'm already starting to feel hungry and I don't like that. I thought I had a good breakfast. Boo hoo. I don't know. I don't know. Like if you're eating anything, tell me what's on the menu. I'd love to know. Yeah, just get a little thing going. Alas, I mean, I wish I had a little more engagement going on here. Like maybe like a like a couple dozen folks, watching. I'd probably like do a whole like which countries are we watching from or something like that. But alas, we only have so much. We only have so many people watching at a time. I think like the maximum I've hit in this entire time is like 4 people. Um, but yeah, let's see. Yeah, I'm just trying to uh just make some sort of like scruffy looking like covering of that. I think this LBT person is interrogating me. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I mean, if they have anything to interrogate me about, I guess it could be like how many of the Land Before Time movies I've seen, which would be, to my memory, only 2.5, I want to say. That being the first one and the sequel. And then that, um, that one movie where it had like a Liopleurodon or something like that. I forget. Yeah. Do you not know the word of Fubi? Lay it down on me. I don't know. I'm still reeling from seeing that one CM Closeman stream where he thought Gary was a copepod. And I'm just like, now I just need to see that. I need to see someone imagine Gary from SpongeBob as a copepod. It's like that sounds really fun. um, I don't know. Yeah, it's a really fun sort of thing to see. Fubi is one of these hideous Bapiosaurus things from one of the sequels. Ah, yes, I have seen them before, as well as the Utyrannus. The Utyrannus, I don't know. The Land Before Time sequels, I don't know. I did remember seeing the what was this one series where I think Chomper talked and also was part of the gang as it was called, and they were led around by I want to say an oviraptorid named Ruby, and there's an episode where this old Pachyrhinosaurus was telling them about the hidden runner, and it was like some kind of it was like what was it, an ornithomimid or something like that? I don't recall exactly, but I don't know. I gave away the DVD set. I did remember watching it with my younger cousins though, when I was much younger. Um, yeah, those sorts of things are very long away in the past now, but it's fun to remember them a little. It does, sometimes if I want to, just kind of work around it, reconstructing dinosaurs or whatever, just as a little, I don't know, Guido. I forgot who Guido was in that series. Goodness. Um, Man, I don't even recall any of those the extra characters. Hey, what's her name? The one lady who did like the whole like tour of that Flintstones amusement park, whatever. Like Jenny Nicholson? Yeah, I think that's her name, Jenny Nicholson. Like she like watched every Land Before Time movie and whatever, and I think that's pretty incredible. Yeah, I just turned off the light because I don't want to kill the power here. Sure, it's a little darker. Oops, sorry. I was playing. I hit the wrong button. And that was a play pause button right next to the brightness button, which I was hoping to hit instead. I think this is at full brightness. It is at full brightness. I am not going to play I'm not going to play more of a spoilt Victorian child on stream by the fall. Yeah, sorry guys. If you want to listen to that, you must do that on your own. I don't make the rules here. Yeah, anyway, let's see. Now, what could we do about your front part of the eye? I don't know. I think if anyone wants to draw Triceratops, I don't know. If you're feeling like drawing something, by all means do so. I want to see like what you'd be cooking up at this time, Or even if you're not drawing something, draw something right now. I don't care what it is. Just as long as it's nothing too freaky, Just, cuz yeah. And feel free to tag me on Twitter about it, I'd love to, get something going on here, just a little something cooking up here. But yeah, But yeah, let's see. Excuse me. Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to draw Triceratops scarring. I want to, I think I'll do a little. I'll do like this big, sort of break in the scalation around underneath the eye, to indicate some sort of like I'll add these sort of like blunt scales around the edges of the the contours of the skull, and then let's see. So Triceratops, what do you call them? The epijugals. They are a little less prominent than say like in some other ceratopsians. Like I don't know. I mean, they're certainly still there. They're just not like the big fancy schmancy sort of things you'd see in like in other Chasmosaurians. Like if you look at like the skull of Pentaceratops or like any sort of those like Pentaceratops tier Chasmosaurians, you'll notice the epijugals kind of stick out a little, especially. Of course, in Triceratops, they're not as prominent because, like, I don't know, Triceratops just kind of didn't really go that route with that sort of ornamentation, whatever, But of course, love to play around with that sort of stuff. And I'll do that. Gonna do that sort of thing. Let's see. Of course, I'm gonna show like some scarring along the side of the face, which is representative of like, just like these guys got rough and tumble times, Yeah. I see there's only one person watching, and that could most likely be our dear friend Primordial Pros, in which case, okay, yeah, there's still a bit of paper in there. Here's a little bit of one of my notes. This is me attempting to figure out what's preserved of the holotype of Vegavis EIE. It's not really a proper way to pronounce the species name of Vegavis because it's like it's an acronym. It's like, what is it? The Argentine Antarctic Institute. That's what it is. Yeah. So there's the Triceratops so far. I'm pretty proud of it. The little guy down here is the juvenile Admontosaurus. I'm your little butterfly. I was thinking more like, Return to Innocence by Enigma, if you've ever heard that one. You do not know the song? I thought you were a Game Grumps fan. I thought you would know from like the I thought you'd know from like the Grumps animated segment on Return to Innocence. I don't know how to find it, but I'm shocked. How could you? Oh my goodness. It's a good song. What can I say? Return to Innocence by Enigma. Look it up right now. You're gonna be brought back. It's such a cheesy sounding song, but so good. Yeah, it's amazing. You have watched Game Grumps Casual in the past, as did I. But then around like I don't know, I want to say like around 2019, I just kind of fizzled away with like the obsession in a way. I just kind of stopped watching them. Though previously at that time, I want to say like around like early 2019, I was like a bit more of like an Oni Plays sort of fan. But I don't know. I just kind of stopped really caring too much about him. I don't know. I don't really watch any gaming YouTubers. I don't game at all, by the way, for any of you who are watching. I'm not a gamer. Neither do I have the desire to be. I just want to, do my own thing, And I am living quite comfortably. Not to say like I wouldn't want to ever play video games. I mean, I certainly find, some games to have an aesthetic sort of tinge to them that's, sort of my, my thing, but really, if we're gonna be honest, I really don't have the desire, nor really the sort of, need to do so. So, I mean, I'm just kind of I'm living in my own little bubble, just sort of, just just like, not really too bothered by the fact that I've never really played anything. Yeah. Yeah, gaming channels can be whatever. I don't really care for them much. Um, Eventually, maybe someday I'll be won over. Maybe they'll I don't know. Like, I feel like the closest I've ever gotten to, like, being, like, down with, like, a gaming channel, whatever, is just, like, any clips of Germa, which, I mean, everyone at my age is, like, obsessing over that man. I have to start being a little more familiar with him. I feel like I feel like he's a the peak of, masculinity in my opinion, you know? He is who I think all men should strive to be. Our generation is in need of some beautiful, wonderful masculine figures. He's the guy, you know? Either him or Siem Kozeman or, what's his name? Uh, Chris Fleming. I think either of those guys. Just those guys, you just gotta listen to them. They have some good opinions. I feel like you get something wonderful out of them. That's just my hypothesis, done through objective science. Um, but yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you. Just as long as role models aren't, you know, absolutely abhorrent people. Like, yeah, you know, yeah. You can't be. You gotta be kidding me with that one. Okay, I'm gonna interrogate you on Discord about that one, my friend. You can't just say such things like that and expect me to believe them with all the um with such I can't be expected to believe that. Yeah, Dark Side Phil did that. Oh my god. Yeah, you goofball. Oh my god, you scared me for a moment. Gosh, okay. Crisis averted. My friend remembered Dark Side Phil exists. How dare you just how could you mess how do you mix those two up anyway? Like what? Oh my gosh. My friend. My friend, you need help. Oh my god. How did you do that? Why? What in God's green earth led you to that wonderful little conclusion? Goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. That scared me actually. Oh no. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is just wonderful. Oh, okay. Okay. I needed a little yeah, that helped me ground be grounded a little in a I was not ready for that sort of information. Because if that were the truth, I think I would turn to dust, never to return. I should photograph this. I'm gonna photograph this for a friend so that they know what I'm doing. Yeah, anyway. Just gonna I'm just only gonna post this privately to someone. I might do it, like just show off like my work in progress, just to just some folks on Twitter, but I don't know. Maybe it might be a Twitter circle thing. Maybe it might be public. I think I could make it public. I don't think it's like anything that's like super top secret. I have like one commission that I'm trying to keep pretty hush hush in terms of description, whatever. Yeah. I feel tempted to go on for like 10 more minutes or something like that, but at the same time, I'm getting really hungry, not for lunch because lunch would be too soon for lunch. I don't want to do that for myself. So I'm like thinking, I am going to just, maybe have a spoonful of peanut butter, try to, keep myself a little content, with that. And then, of course, figure out what to make for lunch. I should also probably wash the dishes eventually. Um, but yeah, I don't know. This isn't really getting too much traction. Um, I think I'll try again sometime later this week to try another stream time. That's more of my idea. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure things out for ourselves. So I'm just gonna add like a couple more details here, and just like just mess around with things. Just yeah, but yeah. I have a nice week ahead of me, so I'm happy about that. And I hope that whatever's gonna go on later this week, it's all fun and good. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. This Monday's pretty cash, just sitting back, just gonna clean up the kitchen a little, wash the dishes, figure out like what else to do here, because it's a pretty much a stay at home sort of day. Nothing really big on my mind. So just yeah, just might do that. I think I'll actually just keep it on for like 5 more minutes, and then I'll just end at 11:25 my time PST because I exist on California. Not that I would literally call it that. I don't know. I'm just gonna bring it closer just to yeah, just see what's going on here. Yeah, just gonna you know reason why I keep doing this is because sometimes it helps just kind of loosen up some of my back vertebrae, because sometimes I feel a little cramped up. I also like doing this a lot. That was pretty neat. Sometimes like when I do this, it hurts because like it's a very noticeable sort of pain because you got to release those nitrogen bubbles. um, but yeah, I have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, what else? Let me just might even take a shower today because my hair is feeling a little out of sorts. I took a shower this Saturday because I was going out for something special. And I mean, I think my hair is holding up okay. Maybe I might not take a shower until Wednesday or something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of interesting like that. I am a little more laid back with my habits when it comes to I don't know, showering. Like I don't try to shower too often because well, I mean, I don't try to, I don't know, people who like shower like twice a day are incredibly, they're interesting to me. Like, how would you do that? You can't, you should, I don't know. It doesn't seem logical to me. I personally, whenever I shower, I usually try to do it like early morning or noon. And then, I don't know. That's usually like if I'm meeting anyone special or, trying to do an event or whatever. In which case, I don't want to, be arriving smelling like bedhead, I don't want to smell weird. So I always try to make sure to, keep a little hygienic. And what was it? Gosh, my knuckles. I need to get lotion on these puppies here because look at them. They're so rugose. It's like I decided to pick a fight with a volcano and I got, my skin scraped and scuffed by igneous rock. of all sorts, you know. I mean, I could use a little exfoliation, but probably a little, exfoliation to, just kind of make myself not look like I'm falling apart. I don't know why it went dark for a smidge, but could be my battery is running low or something like that. I don't think so, really. But, you know, yeah, I'm just a minute more, and then I'll walk in through the door. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. Snickers, 7 heaven, don't break it down to size. Snickers, 7 heaven. Yeah. In the future, yours truly will certainly be listening to more of the Alan Parsons Project, the power of the Alan Parsons Project, if you will. Maybe I'll stream later today. Who knows? Maybe at maybe 2ish or whatever, which will be like a couple hours from now. Um, excuse me. Sorry, that was vulgar. Uh, I don't want to be vulgar on stream, but yeah. Um, yeah, my battery's running low and I'm getting hungry, so I think it's only logical that I end stream right here. It was nothing much, but I had my fun. Wait while I uh anyway, I'm just gonna just take my time to kick it off. So yeah, it was pretty. It was pretty modest. Not too many people showed up, but I had fun. I had fun. Answering some questions. Talking about a couple things. So yeah. So yeah, have a wonderful day, folks. I'm glad you stopped by. Hopefully, sometime soon I can do something like this again. I haven't done one of these sorts of things in a while, so you know, um, we'll get cracking on that sort of thing. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful Monday. Bye.